Hi, this is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Perhaps if there are no other artist that has a fascinating story like Vincent van Gogh. As I said before, if you look on things like Google Trends, who are artists that people are looking at, who are some of the most popular artists, Vincent van Gogh is always up there in the first couple artists. Why? Because we still today are still so fascinated with him and fascinated with his artwork. I personally love Vincent van Gogh. He is by far one of my favorite artists. I not only am fascinated with his story, but I love his artwork itself. He was born March 30th, 1853, in a small town in the Netherlands, and he was the son of a Protestant pastor. He was raised in a very strict religious household, which later influences themes of suffering and redemption that would be known to permeate his art throughout his life. He was sensitive, he was an introvert, and traits that remained with him throughout his life. He struggled a lot. He was somebody who really struggled. He struggled in his career. He never saw success throughout his entire life. Even though now he's one of the best known artists, he's one of the most famous artists who's ever lived, during his lifetime, he was not. In fact, he was cast out. He was ostracized. People thought he was strange, especially after he cut off his ear and went to try to give the ear to that prostitute. You know, people thought, who is this guy that lives in our town? We don't want him here. He was kind of like he was unwanted. He didn't really have that many friends. He was kind of a bit of a loner. And this, of course, all greatly influenced his things. It influenced he had mental illness that he struggled with. So he probably was one of the guys that you would see, on your street corner today and think like, who is that weirdo? And don't realize that he was probably one of the greatest artists that's ever lived. A lot of religion and personal turmoil influenced his life. He was first going to become a missionary, but his unorthodox approach and extreme lifestyle alienated him from the church authorities. He began to have this series of failures and rejections that would just follow him and plague him throughout his life, amplifying feelings of inadequacy and loneliness. I think he was probably a very deeply troubled and lonely soul. He was, I have a lot of empathy for him. And you can see this in his later works. It was his late 20s that he decided to dedicate himself fully to art. He was encouraged by his younger brother, Theo, who was a significant source of emotional and financial support. And there he began his journey as an artist. His works were studies of realism. One of those is, of course, The Potato Eaters, where, quite a famous painting that has dark tones, these somber themes. And he was influenced by the Dutch masters such as Rembrandt and the Hague School of Artists. He then moved to Paris. He started embracing color, and color became very much a part of his life. He was really influenced by the Impressionists, by people like Claude Monet, Paul Gauguin, and others. And this led to a dramatic shift in his art and his technique. Gone were the dark tones and the earthy tones, but instead were bright colors, energetic paint strokes. And he began with the style. It's interesting to note that Vincent van Gogh is not an impressionist. He's considered a post-impressionist, meaning he is after the impressionist movement. So he was many ways, he was sort of like a man that was sort of ahead of his time, you could say, in his artwork itself. He had this dream for the studio in the South, and he had, Gauguin come, and they fought, and that's where the famous cutting off of the ear happened. And then he ended up in a mental institution, but it was also down there where a lot of his masterpieces were born out of this turmoil. Things such as the Starry Nights, Starry Nights picture, some of his bedroom pictures, were all considered some of his great masterpieces. That he had during this time. He was basically a tragic type of soul in many ways. He was someone who had a lot of, tragedy. He died, believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and he died with his brother Theo at his side. And then after he died, 6 months later, his brother Theo died. So really the person who's credited for making Van Gogh who he is today was Theo's widow, Joanne, and she's the one that really preserved Vincent van Gogh's artistic legacy. And it's really to the credit of the Van Gogh family that we still know about Van Gogh today, that they really preserved him. They have, made the Van Gogh Museum of Art. They've been very actively involved in all this and made sure that the world knows of this great artist, Vincent van Gogh. If you'd like to be able to read more about this, you can read our blog post, The Fascinating Story of Vincent van Gogh's Artistic Journey. And particularly if you're planning to go to Netherlands and see the Van Gogh Museum, this is a great blog post for you to be able to read, even if you don't plan to go there, but you just are like me and love Vincent van Gogh. This is a great blog post to read, to be able to read how the Vincent van Gogh family and Vincent van Gogh's family, the Van Gogh family, really preserved the legacy of this great artist, Vincent van Gogh. We owe a debt of gratitude to them for doing that for all of us. This is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. Thank you so much for listening and being part of our community. We hope that you'll give us a thumbs up, that you will subscribe, that you'll let others know about this. In about 5 to 6 minutes a week, we talk about all things to do with art. Thank you.